Khaled Abu Toameh is an Israeli Arab journalist, filmmaker and lecturer. He's one of the foremost authorities on the Arabic population within Israel, which is of course quite substantial, and on Gaza, where he worked as a journalist prior to 2007. I'm delighted to say he's here in Australia as a guest of the Australian Israel Jewish Affairs Council, and he's found time in a short but busy trip to join us here in the ADH TV studio. Khaled, welcome to ADH TV.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
We have to start with October 7. Of course, it seems to be forgotten now by so much of the press that this began with that horrendous, barbaric act by Hamas and its followers in Gaza. Were you surprised by the savagery of that attack?
Absolutely. I think most of us were surprised. You know, I've been covering Palestinian affairs for many years. I know Hamas. I interviewed most of their leaders. I was actually sitting in Gaza when Hamas was established back then. I've covered many of the Hamas attacks during the first Intifada, the second Intifada, and we're talking about suicide bombings, we're talking about drive-by shootings and many other forms of terrorism. But what we saw on October 7, I have to admit, did come as a surprise to me. Why was I surprised? As you said, I was surprised by the magnitude of the savagery, the barbarism, the crimes. I mean, we didn't see something like this in the past from Hamas. It's one thing to send someone to detonate a bomb on a bus in the center of Jerusalem or in a busy street in Tel Aviv, but to have hundreds, if not thousands, of Hamas fighters invade Israel, followed by thousands of ordinary Palestinians, Palestinian residents of Gaza, and to do what they did. You know, I don't want to go into graphic details, but to kidnap children, toddlers, mothers, young girls, the elderly. We're talking about more than 240 who were kidnapped to Gaza on that day, to deliberately target families, entire families in their homes, to shoot some of them in front of their parents, and to shoot parents in front of their children. And then what happened at the music festival at the Nova? I mean, you know, all these atrocities really did come as a surprise to me. It's not that I thought Hamas was a peaceful, non-violent movement, but what happened on October 7, I have to admit, was really different.
Well, it says something about what's been happening in Gaza since Israel withdrew and left them to try and manage their own affairs back in 2007, I think, when you were there. Of course, Hamas came to power or stole power pretty soon afterwards, and the rest is history. But we've had this intense radicalization of the Palestinian people, and particularly the young, right, in education, in the kind of shows they watched, even the children's shows on Palestinian TV. That's had a quite horrendous and evil consequence, hasn't it?
Again, I have to agree with you. October 7, in many ways, was the direct result of this massive campaign to delegitimize Israel and demonize Jews. It's a campaign that has long been taking places in the mosques, in the media, in the rhetoric, on the streets, on the campuses, on social media now, especially, by the way. It's a campaign that is being waged not only by Hamas, but also by the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. It is a campaign that has poisoned the hearts and minds of many Palestinians. It is a campaign that has turned Israeli Jews into legitimate targets of violence. It is a campaign that denies Israel's right to exist. It is a campaign that depicts Israel as a colonialist imperialist creation, as an alien body that was imposed on that region. It's a campaign that does not accept Jews' history over there. It does not see them as an indigenous people. It's a campaign that tells Palestinians the Jews are evil, they're bad, the Jews steal the land, the Jews kidnap the children, the Jews desecrate the holy sites. And it is this type of campaign that empowers Hamas, emboldens Hamas, and it is this type of campaign that drives Palestinians to carry out more attacks against Israel. So what we have seen, even before Hamas took over Gaza in 2007, we have seen this campaign continue in the West Bank, in Gaza. It's not a new campaign. It did not start, the radicalization of Palestinian society did not start with the arrival of Hamas to power. Yes, Hamas did contribute to that. It did add to it. It did escalate the rhetoric against Israel, but this campaign has been there for many years.
Well, Khaled, that narrative you've just described, right? This is the narrative as it's taught to Palestinian children from an early age, Israel as the colonial oppressor, the force for evil in that region that's imposed completely artificially. That's exactly the same narrative, of course, which has taken hold amongst people who have considered themselves amongst the intelligentsia here in the West, in our universities, in Sydney University, in Melbourne University. We've seen them on the streets. They've been completely deluded and misled about this very little idea of what the real history of Israel is. But that's the narrative that's taken hold, isn't it? And yet it's just not true. And here's what I'm coming to here is that you are, as I said at the top of this, an Israeli Arab. You have presumably no investment in the Zionist project as such. You're not a member of the Jewish faith, but you are attached to this place as a country. Why? Why?
When Israel was created in 1948, 145,000 Arabs stayed inside Israel, including my grandparents. And we became Israeli citizens, or they became Israeli citizens. We helped build Israel. We accepted Israel. We did not challenge Israel's right to exist. And Israel, thankfully, took us and gave us citizenship and absorbed us. Today, we, the Arab community inside Israel, we're called Arab Israelis or Israeli Arabs. Today, we are nearly 2 million, if not more, people. And we live inside Israel as Israeli citizens. Now, you are right. We are probably not Zionists. And we don't follow the Jewish faith. Most of us are Muslim, over 90%. Some of us are Christian. Others are Druze, members of the Druze community. But the fact that we are not Jews does not mean that we are not loyal to Israel. You can be non-Jewish and you can be loyal to Israel. And there's nothing wrong with being pro-Israel. I do not consider being pro-Israel a crime. First of all, I'm an Israeli citizen. Israel is my state. Secondly, being pro-Israel does not necessarily mean that I condone everything Israeli governments or Israeli armies or police forces do. No, for me, being pro-Israel means that I believe in my right as a member of the Arab community inside Israel. I believe in wonderful things that Israel stands for. I believe in Israel's right to exist. I want to be part of Israel. We, the Arab community inside Israel, are fighting for integration into our state, Israel. We have no political demands from our state, Israel. Our only demands are those regarding, the demands of any minority around the world. We're asking for more jobs in the public sector. We're asking for more investment in the Arab sector, public funding. And we're asking for improved infrastructure in the Arab sector. These are our only demands. Otherwise, we are comfortable living inside Israel. We want to continue living inside Israel. We want to see peace between our state, Israel, and the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, but we want to stay inside Israel.
Well, I think you may have already answered my next question, but I'll ask it anyway. Hamas clearly wanted to see an uprising by Arabs within Israel to be triggered as a consequence of what happened on that dreadful day. It didn't happen, though. Why not?
Hamas had a number of goals that it was trying to achieve by carrying out October 7. One of them was to derail U.S.-sponsored efforts to achieve normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Another one was to sabotage relations between Jews and Arabs inside Israel. In other words, Hamas was trying to drag us, the Arab community inside Israel, into a violent clash with our fellow Jewish citizens. Now, sadly, in May 2021, Hamas was partially successful. Back then, violence erupted in mixed cities inside Israel. We saw Arabs attacking Jews. We saw, in some instances, Jews also attacking Arabs. Fortunately for us, that did not last for a long time, and it stopped. Now, Hamas was hoping this time to see a repeat of what happened in May 2021, which is violence inside Israel. They wanted to recruit the Arab community and mobilize it against our state, Israel. And I have good news for you. They have failed. And I hope they will continue to fail, because it is not in our interest, the Arab community, to go against our state, Israel. Public opinion polls, by the way, have shown that a majority of the Arabs inside Israel condemn what Hamas did on October 7. We don't accept it at all. I mean, how can any sane person accept what happened? How can you approve of the kidnapping and the killing of women and children and the elderly and all these other crimes we saw? For those who don't know, more than 20 Arab Muslims were butchered by Hamas on that same day. And Hamas knew that they were Muslims. One of them was a woman wearing the hijab, the cover. One of the hostages was a 16-year-old Muslim girl, also wearing the hijab. So we, the Arabs inside Israel, we saw that Hamas did not only come to kill the Jews. Hamas did not distinguish between a Jew and a Muslim, between a man and a woman, between the young and the elderly. They were on a killing spree to kill anyone. So that's one of the reasons why we, the Arabs in Israel, are against it. Another reason is we don't want to repeat the mistake we made in May 2021, where when many of our community members engaged in violence against Israeli Jews. This gave an excuse to the Israeli establishment and to some people in the far right in Israel to call us, the Arabs, a fifth column and an enemy from within. And we are not. We want integration into Israel. We are not an enemy. So that's very important. And that's why we want to avoid the mistake that we made in 2021. And so far, even according to Israeli security officials, the response of the Arab community inside Israel has been very responsible, meaning no engaging in violence. Are we heartbroken at the scenes we see from Gaza? Of course. Are we pained when we see civilians being killed? Yes, of course. But we are not going to come out against our state, Israel, because of that. In fact, we hold Hamas responsible. Hamas started the war, and it's very important to remember that.
One final question. We know that in that raiding party, those attacks on October 7th, in amongst that crowd of people who came in and did unspeakable things in Israel, were employees of UNRWA, the UN refugee or assistance agency in that region. Australia has now resumed giving aid to the UN through UNRWA against the wishes of many other countries. Have we made a mistake?
It's not about whether you have made a mistake or not, but you have the right to ask questions. You have the right to ask, where is your money going and who is your money funding? The Palestinians do need financial aid. The Palestinians do need humanitarian aid. But you need to make sure that this aid does not go to other organizations. Since 2009, UNRWA has been effectively controlled by Hamas. Hamas won the elections of the workers' union in the organization. And over the years, we've seen more and more Hamas people associated with UNRWA. On October 7, there's even evidence that some of the terrorists and some of the Palestinians who invaded Israel were UNRWA workers. And you have the right to go to UNRWA and other organizations and demand a thorough investigation into this before you resume aid unconditionally.
Khaled Abu Toameh, thank you very much for joining us today on Reality Bites.
Thank you very much.